Okay, so on behalf of the City of Elk Grove, thank you for joining today's community conversation about the Permanent Homeless Shelter Project. Our goal today is really to share what's going on. We're going to learn together. We're going to begin refining what our community priorities should be moving forward. And this is early in the process, so this is meeting 2. I know several of you came to meeting 1, and I appreciate that. We will recap where we're going next, but right now we're really here to talk about priorities. So we're going to move through this presentation, but first we're going to do some high-level housekeeping. So this this Zoom meeting has a couple different interactive features that we'll be doing. There's some polling and some ranking. We were going to do breakout rooms, but again, if we don't have an overwhelming number of people, if it stays close to what we have right here, we might just stay together in the main room. I think we can all manage this size of a group. So that is the plan for the interactivity. The way to do different things. So we have up here on the screen how it's going to look if you want to unmute yourself, turn on your camera on your mobile phone, what that looks like. Oh, we have Liz joining. Okay, so, and then also if you want to turn on closed captions, so I have closed captions going on my side. So if you see that little CC in a box, if you would like closed captions going on so you can read along, you can click that as well. You don't have to have it up. You can toggle back and forth, but that's there should you need it. And then as well, if you need to leave the meeting, we're showing you those buttons. There is a waiting room, so if you leave, I will let you back in. There might be a slight delay, but we will get you back in. We are recording this meeting, and this format really is some presentations and some interactivity. We're going to get a sort of the personal story of our homeless navigator as well, and then open it up for some high-level discussion with all of you. So if you do need to leave the meeting or you need to mute yourself, here's how you see this on the bottom of your screen. While we're presenting, we are going to ask people to stay on mute for the most part. You can put questions at any time into the chat box, and the chat box looks like that little kind of dialogue box. We are going to do our best to answer the questions. We have a couple of city folks here that can answer questions as we go. If we get tons and tons of questions that we can't answer right away, we will follow up. We will update our frequently asked questions list. We'll do our best, frankly, but I'm thinking with this number of people, we should be able to answer questions as we go. So any issues before we move on around sort of the housekeeping logistics of how this Zoom works? Okay. I'm going to say something that's obvious to all of us, but I just want to say it anyway. This is a really emotionally triggering topic on both sides, all sides. Lots of strong emotions come out when we talk about homeless shelters and the unhoused and this programming and the lived experiences that many of us have had around this difficult issue. So I would just ask, and I know you will do this anyway, but I will ask everyone to be respectful. We are really trying to seek solutions together as a community. We understand that people will have different perspectives, and we're not trying to, shout each other down in this conversation. It really is seeking common ground. This is, the goal of this Zoom and the goal of this whole process, frankly, is to identify, where are those common opportunities and how we're going to move forward together with folks. So I just want to acknowledge that this is an emotional topic, and I want to thank everyone in advance for being kind to each other. Okay, and I think that's it on the logistics side. I'm going to hand it over to Sarah Bontrager, who I'm sure many of you know, if not all of you know, our housing. Oh, so this is, again, our meeting agenda, but this might be modified. We may not do the breakout groups. We'll sort of play it as we go. But I think we can go on to Sarah.
Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today to talk with us about our permanent shelter effort. I'm Sarah Bontrager. I am the Housing and Public Services Manager for the city. So I oversee our affordable housing, our homelessness, and some of our grants programs. I've worked with Elk Grove for 20 years now, which is crazy to think, but really seen the way that things have shifted on the fronts of affordable housing and homelessness in that time. And so why now is a question. Why a permanent shelter? Um, you know, there's been a growing recognition in the last 10 years or so that Elk Grove does have people who are experiencing homelessness. People in our community do lose their housing for all kinds of reasons. Um, Divorce, job loss, family relationships that aren't sustainable. And we do need a place for those people to be. We've had some temporary programs. They have definitely been helpful, but we know that there is more than just temporary help that is needed. And so what we're really looking to do through this permanent shelter effort is provide a facility that's safe, that's dignified, and offers pathways to permanent housing for our community. And doing that in part with supportive services like case management, job training, and healthcare connections. Can you go back to slide 15 maybe? So thinking about the need here, so California has over 170,000 people that are experiencing homelessness on any given night. It's a huge number. In Sacramento County, it's about 6,600 people experiencing homelessness on any given night. Elk Grove, when we looked at it in 2024 in the point in time count, we had 83. So Elk Grove compared to other communities has a really manageable problem. And we want to keep it that way. We want to make sure that we can get our residents into shelter quickly before they end up being homeless for a year or more, and encountering some of the challenges that come with getting housing, getting employment after such a long period of homelessness. So, and on any given night at this point, the point in time count is usually an undercount. I would say though that we probably have between 70 and 150 people experiencing homelessness at any given point in time. That's about 2% of the county's total. Far less than our per capita share would indicate. But we think part of that is because we have invested over the years in different strategies to address homelessness. We've had some winter sanctuaries, as you can see here. We were really fortunate for many years. We had Elk Grove Heart as a partner, and they ran a winter sanctuary program that provided respite, overnight respite for folks during the winter months. During COVID, it was an entirely volunteer run program, really hard to implement. A lot of effort from a lot of folks went into that. And post COVID, it just didn't quite come together again. We worked with the Heart folks to have kind of a more limited program on the coldest winter nights for a couple of years, but really realized that the city needed to have its own permanent shelter. So we started with the winter sanctuary, the enhanced winter sanctuary that ran for 5 months in the 2023-24 season. And we were able to help 62 folks over the course of that shelter option in a facility that we knew we couldn't use forever because it was going to be the future Elk Grove Library, and it's under construction right now for that use. We learned a lot from that effort, including that having a 24/7 shelter made a big difference. When you've got people who are there all day, they are able to meet with case managers, they're able to meet with the employment specialist staff, and also with some volunteers. And we're better able then to help them connect with employment and housing and other social services that they might need, like mental health or substance use resources. So what we learned from that enhanced winter sanctuary effort was that we really did need a 24/7 shelter. And in fact, it was needed all the months of the year, not just for the coldest winter months. And so last year, we found a location. The Calvary Christian Center partnered with us to provide some space for our year-round shelter effort. Since we've leased that space, we know that the shelter can't remain in that location forever. Our lease goes through 2028. But the time is now to begin preparing for a new permanent shelter. And so that's what we're here to do today. Um, really thinking through how we can design something that brings stability, that brings dignity, for our guests. And also we really want the shelter to focus on accountability, both for the guests, them reintegrating into the community and into housing, and also accountability for the broader community. We want this to be something that our community can be proud of, that we can look at, how many folks we've been able to move on from this. And ultimately, our goal is to reach a point where when someone becomes homeless in our community, we can get them immediately into shelter or back into housing, or and so that we don't have folks who are sleeping outside on the streets. So let's see, skipped ahead a couple of slides here. Okay, so talking a little bit about our services, we want to make sure, we know that one of the things that has made our shelter efforts work to this point is that they have services. As I mentioned, that daytime period that folks are able to be in the shelter, they're connecting with the community resources, with case management, with employment specialists. And that has helped us to get folks back on the track to actually achieving housing. And so we want to continue that with this. So on the guest side, that means that the facility is trauma informed. So we know that most folks who become homeless have experienced some kind of trauma. That could be childhood abuse or neglect, that could be drug use or substance abuse, that could be mental health issues, that could be trauma that they've encountered while they've been out on the street. So we know that this facility needs to feel safe for them. We want to make sure that people have a little bit of their own personal space and space that they can go to if they're feeling overwhelmed. That's what inspires people to stay in the facility, where we can work with them and help them to move on to housing. So with that trauma focus in mind, looking at space that provides a lot of natural light, calming colors, clear organization, spaces that feel comfortable for folks, and that have opportunities to get away from noise, when people are feeling overstimulated. What trauma informed also means is that there are a lot of services at the shelter. So people can meet with a case manager, they can get mental health counseling, they can get substance use counseling if they need it, they can explore job training opportunities and access healthcare referrals. So getting all of that together in the same place, we are reducing barriers that people experience when they're trying to access those many different services that are usually offered in many different places in the community. And it's really hard to do that when you're living outdoors, to get to all those different places, to keep appointments that you might have made. And so we want to offer that in one area. We also want to think about the community with our design. So landscaping, buffering the site from the neighbors, creating secure entrances, a referral only facility, meaning that nobody is lining up outside to get into the shelter, are things that we think will help the shelter to blend into the neighborhood and promote safety. And then, of course, we've been very fortunate to have a really excellent partnership with our law enforcement on our shelter efforts so far, and we want that to continue for this new shelter. So we know when we start talking about a new facility like this, there are a lot of concerns, and that's natural. And I want to acknowledge that, right? This is not an easy thing to plan for. We're not today talking about siting of the facility. There will be another series of meetings that cover that. But the design and the conceptual planning for a shelter does impact how safe it feels. And what the potential impacts are on nearby neighbors, residents, businesses, and that's why this process is really important. We're not here today with a finished design or a predetermined outcome. We really wanted to have these early sessions to listen to our community, to understand our community priorities, and so that we can integrate what you're telling us into the decisions ahead. Um, we know that when shelters are designed well, when they're staffed appropriately, when services are integrated, that we can get some really positive results. And we're seeing some positive results from our existing shelter. We've seen many of our guests move on into some of our affordable housing, into some special permanent supportive housing. And our goal is to keep offering those solutions, to keep connecting folks to those opportunities, to give them the stability and dignity they need to work through the application process for those and other resources, and to keep them moving forward on that, which strengthens the safety and quality of life for the community. So this is the second of our meetings. So we held a project kickoff at the Elk Grove Library a couple weeks ago. We have one more meeting coming up on the 17th, that will share out what we've learned from the first two meetings, and we'll actually have is some conceptual drawings to show at that point. And so hope that you will join us for that meeting, and the link to that is in the chat, if you're looking for more info on that. So we want to, now it's time for you to give some feedback. I've talked a lot. You've heard the context, the city's recent efforts, some of the principles guiding the potential project. There's two simple questions. You'll see a poll pop up on the screen. And your answers to these questions help us to understand a little bit more where we're aligned as a community and where we might need more dialogue. So to lead us through that activity, I'll hand it back over to Crystal.
Okay, so hopefully you saw this pop up. Two questions, like Sarah said. What is your top priority for this project? And if yours isn't on this list, there's an other. And then sort of the second question is for you to type in what that other priority is that we don't have listed. And then if you scroll down, there's a request for you to indicate which is your biggest concern. And so we have some up there like location and safety, cost, neighborhood impact, effectiveness, things we've heard so far. But again, there's an other. If you have a different concern that isn't listed here, we would invite you to please put that in that open box. And I'm just going to sit here for a second. And while we collect answers, I did notice that Councilmember Suen joined us. So welcome, Councilmember. It's really nice to have you here. We also have Isabel from Senator Ashby's office. Always a great supporter. And I think I saw Danelle are you with Stephanie Wynn's office?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So we have all kinds of elected officials watching this, looking at what we're doing, and I'm sure hoping, like we are, that this is really successful and we get a good location and good priorities and everything kind of, works for the best. So, okay, I'm going to give you one more.
Crystal, can I say something really quick?
Of course. You should be able to unmute yourself. Do you want to turn on your camera?
Yeah, I'm trying to, I don't know what's going on here. I don't want to take too much of your time. Anyway, I just wanted to thank everybody for joining and participating in this. It's really important. But one of the things I wanted to emphasize to folks is, oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you and see you.
Okay, great. This is definitely your chance for input, but keep in mind that what you feel or how you feel things are today is this is not a static environment, right? The whole goal of taking in this information and the staff has been fantastic. We're using the data that we garner from you as well as learned experiences and experiences from our consultant team. We're going to employ those to make sure that we can address things like public safety, things, neighborhood compatibility, making sure that you heard Sarah talking about people not being lines out the door in your neighborhood, all those kinds of things. So we're looking to make this the best possible version of this shelter as it can be. And so keep that in mind. So this is a vision. This is not what you might have experienced today or yesterday. So just wanted to make that point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Suen. We appreciate you being here. And yes, we're creating a better tomorrow. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll and share results. It looks like, going through this real quick, so the top priority for this project, far and away, is supportive services at 63%, followed up by safety. No surprise there. 25% of us felt that was the top priority. And then we did have some others. So of the others, let's see. We had measurable effectiveness and impact. Okay, so of the biggest concerns, neighborhood impact is the biggest concern. 60% of us felt that was the strongest concern they had, followed up with a tie between safety and effectiveness. Interesting that biggest concern so far isn't cost or location. So see if that changes over time. But thank you. Thank you for participating in the first activity. And then I'm going to hand it back or over to NJA, who are our architect consultants.
Thank you, Crystal. Appreciate that. And thank you all for taking part in the poll. I think just understanding that supportive services is the top priority really helps us understand that needs of the shelter and making sure that the shelter is offering a full range of services to the homeless population in Elk Grove is really the most important aspect here. So we're going to be working hard with the city to make sure that we deliver a shelter that has a full range of services from case management to job training, some space for some outside healthcare consultants, and navigation to permanent housing. Safety came up as number 2, and making sure that we are delivering a shelter that prioritizes the safety of the guests and the community is really going to be top of mind. The shelter will have 24/7 security and 24/7 staff. We work very closely with law enforcement. We've got a number of officers on the call now, and I guess just be reassured that the safety aspect is a top priority for the city and for the design team. So key here is really making sure that we are listening to your feedback and taking the time to understand your goals and your priorities so that we can build trust in this process. We're not coming to you today with a finished design or a concept. We're coming with ideas, and we're really here to listen to your concerns and your priorities. We have been engaging the community in surveys, and we'd encourage everyone to take part. You can use the QR code here on your screen, or follow the link that's dropped into the chat, or access the survey directly from the project website. To date, we've had, I think, about 250 responses to the online survey that's been up for a while. The top priorities that we've been seeing from the community at large include good neighbor policies, security, and police coordination. So I think there's a lot of commonalities from what we're hearing from the community at large and what we're hearing in the feedback here today. 2 weeks ago, we had our first community event at the Elk Grove Library. Community members came with a lot of questions, a lot of ideas, and a lot of good solutions. It was really great to see that everyone was very solutions-based. And through this ongoing outreach effort, we're going to learn as much as we can from members of the community about your concerns. We shared a number of different themes at that meeting, and we had great conversations talking about how we provide support, how we create a safe and secure environment, addressing the health and wellness needs of the guests, and making sure that they have restful recovery spaces. So these theme boards are also available through the project website on Conveo. You're welcome to navigate there and offer some feedback. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, a solution that you think could work well for your community. And then I'm going to hand it off to John to talk a little bit more in depth about some of the services that we're planning to offer at the shelter.
Yeah, thank you, Jake. And thank you, everyone, for, again, taking your time this afternoon to participate. Your feedback here this afternoon is very important. We take a lot of these comments to heart and really try to hear everyone's voice and make sure we can try to implement where possible. Sarah did a really good job explaining a lot of the services, so I'll probably just kind of touch on a little bit more high level as well. So this shelter has, it's gonna have the basic needs: a bed, restroom, showers, laundry, a place to eat, and also a place to store private belongings. But we would like to engage with you guys today about maybe some range of services that you would like to see offered at the shelter. So some of them can be a job training, or an educational component. We are looking at developing a multi-purpose space that acts as a dining hall. But when that dining hall becomes not in use, that maybe that multi-purpose space transitions into a learning space, one that can have seminars or discussions or little breakout groups. So that is a service that we'd like feedback from the community, from you guys, to see if that is in line. A few others, case management, I think, is a pretty important topic. Having one-on-one support to help those kind of navigate unemployment, healthcare, and housing. Physical and mental health care. So maybe providing kind of an on-site service or strong referral partnerships where that could happen with the case management. Other ones could be a family and like a women children area that is kind of separate from maybe the general population. So a kind of a safe, secured area that's separate for women and children, have a safe play area, and also support for school services. And then probably a really important component is connection to permanent housing. We view this shelter as a transition, not as one that, someone's going to stay here for several years. We really are hoping and providing services for the shelter that make people transition, 6 months or less to that permanent housing option. So next slide. We do that through kind of, design and services kind of have an integrated approach. As Sarah mentioned, trauma-informed design. If you have a well-designed shelter, it can go just as powerful as the services offered. So we really want to create this shelter. We don't want it to make it feel like an institution or it's cold. We really want warm, inviting colors. But we also are looking at a palette that also can have some cooling colors as well to help kind of calm some of that trauma. Another aspect that we've seen with this population is they have can sometimes have a hard time transitioning from being outside for several years to being kind of in an indoor environment that's structured. So we really play with natural daylighting. We feel is very important. We'd like to see your guys' feedback on that. Connection to the outdoors. If you go to the next slide, we feel, and I know this was a strong kind of comment from you guys through the chat and the polling is, integration to the neighborhood or the neighborhood impact of the surroundings. One way we could solve that is a kind of a secured outdoor area. This secured outdoor area could be screened off and kind of out of the public view. But with trauma-informed design, it's really important to have an outdoor space for people to maybe need to go take a break from being indoors, where they need to transition to relieves whatever anxiety or whatever trauma that they're dealing. They could go outside, get some fresh air, natural daylight. So we do think an outdoor space is very important, and like to again get your guys' feedback on that. But we would also like to screen it from the public view, just so that they one have safety and security and privacy, but also we feel like it would help integrate to the surrounding neighborhood better by not having them, just out on the sidewalk or, in public view. A few other things is, security is going to be a very important. I know that was a topic on the polling, and people thought that that was an important item as well. For security, we're looking at very well site lighting through the shelter and, providing a nice welcoming reception area or lobby, one that is greeting everybody coming through. It becomes kind of a checkpoint. So not everyone can come and go. It's going to be monitored. And this shelter, as Sarah mentioned too, it's referral only. So it's not just going to accept walk-ins. It's going to be people that have been referred and been vetted out, that they have in fact been a resident of the community of Elk Grove. So I think we also have another activity, Crystal.
We do. Okay, so let's go to activity 2, which should pop up. Okay, so in this activity, we have a couple different topics building off of what John just presented. And we're asking you to sort of indicate, this is not very scientific, but indicate how important it is to you. So how important is shelter size and capacity between, kind of a not very important up to, this is really important to me, type of services offered, how important is location considerations, how important is security, how important is neighborhood integration. So, and then going back, I think Christina had mentioned something that's a fair point in the chat earlier about how neighborhood integration and location considerations are obviously tied to each other. Okay. So I'm going to give everybody a few more minutes. Thank you to everyone who's been putting questions in the chat box as well. you're starting to see some of those answers come back. With such a small group, I think we'll have plenty of time that we can circle back if you have, you know, a follow-up question to the response. All of the things that we're hearing in the chat box and that we're hearing from you verbally today, we will be updating our FAQ on our website accordingly. So as we're continuing to hear things, we will continue to refine the materials to, you know, keep things as responsive to the questions that we're hearing as possible. Okay, so I'm going to go through these really quickly. So, okay, how important to you is shelter size and capacity? It's, I would say, half of you said it was like kind of a medium level of importance. The size and capacity that we're thinking of is fairly in line with what we have right now. So I think it is important to note it's not, you know, we're not discussing the 100-bed shelter or the 300-bed shelter that you see in some other places. Okay, so services offered, very important. I would say everyone put it as high important except for one person. So 88% of the respondents felt that the services is a really important piece. Location considerations as well. That was very high of importance to everyone except for one person put it as a medium importance. Security, 100% of folks say that's a very high importance, and we agree. We really want this to be secure and safe for the guests living there and the community as a whole. So you'll see that security in the design and in lots of conversations, and represented with, you know, we have 2 members of our police department here today. So thank you for being here. And last but not least, how important is neighborhood integration? Still very important. Everyone put it as a high, except for one person had it as a medium level of importance. So we appreciate you weighing in on all of this, and we're going to continue by, okay, so the next thing we're doing is we are hearing from our navigator, I believe.
Hi, my name is David Betancourt. I am the homeless navigator, one of the 2 here with the city of Elk Grove. I have been with the city in this role for just over a year and a half. Prior to coming to the city, I spent 25 years doing specialty mental health services from, and I know this will pop up probably in the chat too, but transitional age youth, school age, adults, elderly, anybody and everybody. So I've been doing this level of work for a long time. What we're seeing out there, there was a slide earlier about the numbers of individuals that we have here. It's easy to find those who are in a tunnel, in a tent, in a field. The navigators, there's not a single spot in the city that we haven't put our feet down in. And if there is, we'll find it and we'll go looking. Individuals in cars, much harder to find because they move around a lot. So that's where our numbers really start to go up a little bit more in terms of the estimate. So it's a hard thing. Sometimes we'll even switch our shifts around and pick up swing shift or nighttime shift and go out looking in parking lots, back alleys, all sorts of places to try to find folks. So that's some of the things we're seeing there with our numbers. I will tell you, a year ago last summer, prior to one of the municipalities north of us closing down a bordering land of ours, and what Sarah Bontrager said, a manageable problem for us. They had more individuals on that borderland in that tunnel than we had in the entire city. We went through with our officers and navigators and handed out. We had an abundance of water, and it was really hot last summer, so we actually went out and handed out water and did a little bit of outreach there. So just to give you guys an understanding, it is significantly lower here than what's going on. And a lot of the other municipalities, we do a lot of work. I would say the navigators, 75% of our interactions are proactive, and only 25% are reactive based on calls. Best way to for anybody to get a hold of us is through the See Click Fix app. It automatically generates a report. And I know at times other people will also call into the non-emergency line with the police department. And we work very closely with our department, where we've been through a lot of the other areas. We have something special here. I'll just say it that way. We have something special here, where we are able to respond quickly and effectively. Other areas have many situations where camps have been closed, but no shelters have been offered because there is no space. There is nothing else. And all they're just doing is kicking the can down the road because they just don't have that availability. We, in our current situation, we have the ability to address that. Everybody has been offered shelter opportunities. One of the big things you'll hear out there in the news are people refusing services, people refusing help. Do we get that? Yeah. But some municipalities report 100% people refuse. We have maybe 15%, maybe 10%. And with those who are refusing, we coordinate, we spend time with them, we try to understand what is leading to that refusal and what we can do. That's going back to the trauma-based care. Was there some sort of abuse in a congregate setting? Do they have a mental illness that prevents them from being around a lot of stimuli, stuff like that? So we will absolutely address that and work with that to try to reduce down the very, very small amount of folks who we don't seem to get in. Ballpark number right now of those who have refused out of the, I think the number was 83 at the last pit count, maybe six total. But that doesn't mean that they refuse to work with us. That just means that they are just saying, I can't go in the shelter. So just to give some of that. There were some questions I'm gonna kind of skew off my notes here. There was questions in the chat. Anybody who comes through the shelter will come through a navigator. It will come through navigator. We will vet that they are meaningful residents of Elk Grove. We will ensure that. There's a lot of stuff on social media right now stating, oh, if you build it, they will come. We are adamant about making sure that our shelter is ours, is Elk Grove people. It's the people that are coming from your streets. It's my streets. If you don't know, been in Elk Grove for the most part since 1989. So when I say we, I do mean we. There are people. I'll tell you right now, to go off of what Sarah Bontrager was saying, we have started to make that transition. We've had 19 people leave our shelter since we opened it less than a year ago to a better situation than when they entered. 19. We are now starting to see what I call the next generation. We're starting to see folks in their early 20s who are hitting the streets. It could be because of family disputes. It could be because they have nobody else, or one young individual who was really trying to work and was renting a room somewhere. Work hours got cut and she couldn't afford a room anymore. She came to us. We found her. She came to the shelter, already working a second job. Got a job again. Is already working on trying to get back out there. Very fast turnaround with this one. So we're starting to see some of those early 20s, first time, maybe second time homeless experiences, and trying to stop that cycle. If we can stop that, we won't see. If we can stem it, I'll never say stop it because life is unpredictable. But if we can stem it a little bit and slow it down, we will see the number of occurrences of individuals on our streets and in our shelter drop. I jokingly say the ultimate end goal to this is for me not to be here. The need. If I could ever do that we did our job. Somebody asked a question about what is meaningful outcomes or something like that for people, and I know Sarah responded to it, but I want to make sure people understand. Every single person who comes into the shelter, first of all, we are what's called a low barrier shelter. We means we don't turn people away. We absolutely work with them. Whether there is a drug issue, whether there is a mental health issue, whether it's just hey, I lost my house sort of thing, or I lost my apartment, or I had a divorce. We work with everybody. And what I will tell you is that allows us to use our collaborative approach. And it's a collaboration between the shelter, between the city officials, between the navigators, between the police department, between the individuals themselves, and maybe even their family, to try to right the ship with them. We have cases, going back to the measurable outcomes, sometimes it's just getting somebody to shower. That is a measurable outcome. That is something that is big. Anybody who spent enough time on the 95624 side knows my buddy who walks up and down Elk Grove flooring. And getting people to shower once a week, even if they're not staying at the shelter. Come over with me. Let's spend some time with you. Maybe have a meal with them there at the shelter. Get them to shower. Those are the sort of things that are progress when you're talking about it gone 8, 10, 12 months before somebody had shower. Sometimes it's linking people to mental health. I think the latest number is 22 or 23 individuals have been linked to specialty mental health. Without the shelter, that doesn't happen. They are worried about survival. And I will tell you, coming from a mental health background, one of the biggest things the shelter this year has really been pushing, with us supporting it, is stopping the stigma of mental illness. We have people weekly who now come up to us and go, okay, you know what, I saw these guys do it, maybe I'll try it now, something like that. So everybody's measurable outcomes, measurable goals are different. Another question was pets. We strongly believe in possessions, pets, and partners. We have toured many shelters and seen, and every shelter is different, and they need to run the way they need to. Our fortunate situation allows us to allow partners to stay together. It's not a shelter plan where men are on one side, women are on the other. Okay. It's not a shelter plan where it's at the moment, it's not a shelter plan where it's prison style bunks. We know it's just not conducive. So we know keeping partners together is important. I tell the story all the time, or the example all the time. If it was me and my wife and I had to separate from her at night and I couldn't ensure her safety, I'd stay in my car myself. So it's really important. Pets are another important thing. We know how calming and supportive they are. We've had cats and dogs in the shelter this year. I am happy to say all of those cats and dogs are permanently housed with their people. So we've had a good success with that. This is the first time, I think, since we opened the shelter in November that we don't have an animal in the shelter. So that's kind of a big thing there. I always want to emphasize, anybody who comes through will be vetted from a city official. We collaborate with the school district, we collaborate with the police department. We will make sure that they're ours. We are not in the business of bringing other folks here. And as much as we get calls out every day for that, every day for people trying to get in. And the plan has always been to make sure that we are supporting our Elk Grove residents, and that's who's here. So people coming into our shelter here are from our streets. They've been here. We got one guy who's been here since like 1965. We have somebody who's 72 years old in the shelter right now, and somebody who's 22. Oh, thank you, Jaimano. Yes, low barrier, to bring that back around. Low barrier means we just open the doors to whoever we can get in. If somebody has a drug or alcohol problem, the linkage is there. The opportunity is there. Starting the conversations. Often it's just about stopping the stigma and acknowledging what's going on. Okay, a lot of these folks, they've lived a very hard life for whatever led to their being homeless. Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, I'm going to be homeless today, and chooses that. These are things that lead to that. And so we're big with that. We're big with supporting mental health, supporting sobriety and harm reduction. I can't tell you how many times I've personally, or my partner personally, sat at Sierra Vista, our closest psychiatric hospital to us, and got people entered. I brag about the story because I brag for her. It's all her work. But we had an individual who was the #1 911 called on individual on Sheldon for a very long time. multiple 911 calls on her a week. She hasn't, my old partner and I, we showed up to the shelter one day, and she was out front, and we both look at each other, go, uh-oh. And we walk up and we go, hi. And she puts her forehead into my chest and cries and says, can you help me? Okay, let's go. Let's do it now. So we strike, when it's hot. And since then, she has taken so much control of her own mental health and her own court cases and all that sort of stuff. She's been in our shelter. She hasn't exited. She hasn't left at all. She is building towards the skills to live on her own at a potential, what's called permanent supportive housing, PSH. The shelter serves a purpose, and I will be the first one to acknowledge location is always the most sensitive conversation. But whatever we do here in the city of Elk Grove, it's serving a purpose. And we have the ability to do that now, before we end up like some other municipalities who don't have that luxury, who are just trying to make sure people don't die on the street. It's a tough thing. But we really do have a good opportunity here, and a good team to try to address what's going on. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything here on my the other big thing I will tell you, and if there's anybody who says, hey, you're importing people in, you're bringing Sacramento people in, you're bringing Folsom people in, whoever it is. We have, between me and my partner prior to him just leaving, he just got a job in the Bay Area. It's his dream job. Totally happily for him. We've helped hundreds of people who are not Elk Grove get back to where they came from and linked to services. We're talking mental health. We're talking physical health. We've helped people who got stuck here from Arizona and helped a 9-month pregnant woman stuck here in Arizona. Car broke down, ended up in our shelter. 3 days later, we got her back into Arizona. We confirmed, hey, there's family waiting for you. We made sure her and her partner had food, and the dog had food and everything like that. And within a week of her being there, the baby was born. We went from having 2 and then a possible 3rd here, and somebody back to family. We will do whatever we can to try to make sure we are getting that. And what that does is it makes sure our population isn't increasing here. Hundreds of people we have helped back to where they came from, got them linked. We've worked with several other navigation and municipalities in the area, have several on speed dial, who when we have something come up, hey, I'm bringing this person back, can you meet us over here, and can we make sure they're being helped? Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 days, and the navigators get to do that. So it's a pretty big thing that I'm pretty proud of being able to do.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, I think that's all I got. That's all the notes I took. Sorry, that was my perspective. I told you if you let me talk, I'll just keep talking.
No, so we really wanted, I know some of you have met David already, but we really wanted to introduce him because he's just such a gem and a wealth of information and passion, and the city is lucky to have him. And when we say people get referred through the navigators, I mean, we mean David and we're hiring David's new partner. But it's an incredible role. So we've had a couple people join while we've been presenting, and I do want to talk about next steps, or I think I'm handing it back to Sarah for next steps. And then I think we'll open it up, keep everyone in a main group, and we'll take conversations. But Sarah, do you mind just recapping where we're going with this project next?
Yeah, absolutely. So today is the second of 3 meetings on our conceptual planning. What we will roll out at the 3rd meeting is some design aesthetic drawings and a plan for a building. That helps us to lead into the location phase, which is phase 2, which we anticipate will be roughly October to January timeframe, where we're looking at options for a location. The conceptual planning piece is so important for us in planning for the location, because it lets us know what we need in terms of like a minimum size for a site. If we need half an acre or an acre, to fit in all the things that we think the community thinks are essential for the shelter to be successful. So what we're going to do before the third meeting on the conceptual plan is compile today's input along with our survey results and other outreach feedback to get to that point where we do have a conceptual plan, where we have kind of a rough diagram for the building so that we know how much indoor space we need, how much outdoor space we need for programming, outdoor space for guests as well as for parking and other uses. And then, that meeting will be kind of the meeting on September 17th is an update for the community. And then we will be kicking off our phase 2 input. And so we'll be looking for some input more specifically on locations and how we would, what factors folks want to see in choosing a location for the shelter. And then ultimately culminating in a series of public meetings around some specific sites, which will take a couple months as we, winnow down some site options. So we would love for folks to stay engaged in this. We have our website, we have our survey, which has been linked a couple of times in the chat. Folks who have joined us recently can see that link in there. You can sign up for email updates. Our next meeting is at District 56 this time on Wednesday, September 17th at 5:30 p.m. And then we will be sharing via our social media all of the future meetings. And so hope that you all will stay engaged throughout this process.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, yes. I vote, and since I have the host controls, I get to say, let's do this. Let's stay all together. I want everyone to hear everyone's questions and answers. And I'm going to remind you, if you don't know how to raise your hand, it's probably under React, which for me is like a little heart in my toolbox thing. If you click on that, there's a way to raise your hand. Everybody at this point has the power to unmute themselves. We have some questions that have been already answered in the chat, but if you want to verbally say it and then add to it, if you have like a follow-up question, you're welcome to. We have about 30 minutes left for this Zoom meeting, so this is the conversation phase. So I would say if you would like to chat with any of us about anything, raise your hand and or just unmute yourself if you can't figure out how to raise your hand. And we'll take it person by person, question by question. You'll have different city departments here represented, so we'll pass answer responsibility around depending on the topic of the question. So anybody want to start? You don't have to raise your hand, you could just unmute. Diane?
I just want to start with a comment with the boots on the ground piece that Elk Grove Heart Homeless Assistance Resource Team does with David and the city and the current temporary shelter, that I'm glad that we're putting so much time and energy into what we are creating for the future. What we've had in the past was successful. What we are doing now, I think, is more successful because of the things we've learned, and we're continuing to grow and learn. And I just think that Elk Grove is doing an amazing job with us and need to shout that out.
Thank you, Diane. We appreciate your partnership. Anna.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I was curious if is this shelter going to include single adults or adults and children, or what is in store for the families? I'm not sure if I missed it, if it was already covered.
Thanks for bringing that up, Anna. Yes, at this point, we have heard from the community, and our data backs this up, that we do need some shelter options for families. Our current shelter is single adults only, or adults only. They can be partnered, but they can't come in with minor children. And we've been using motel vouchers as an option for families. But we are anticipating with this shelter effort that we will have space for 2 to 4 families, just depending on how big those family units are. And you know, understanding that we need that to be separated from the single adults population. So we are anticipating having a couple different areas of the shelter, one that is more family focused and provides some private space and restrooms for families.
David, did you mean to have your hand up?
I did, and I had my list here. I did not mention the city's relationship with Heart. And I have to tell you, when we're talking about families and our individuals, we are so fortunate and blessed to have a connection. This is where I'm saying we have just such special things going on here. Whether it's our police department, who I can I can send a text and have an officer to me, you know, in minutes if I needed help. I can send a text and in minutes have a family taken care of and off the street, and clothes or food, whether it's with the safe office at the school district or Heart. Heart's been such a massive component that I don't know if everybody knows about, and I didn't speak to, but Diane, your group has been just massively important in terms of being able to function and react and in real time, sometimes just within a text, like, okay, I'm on my way. So I have to just say that with Heart, to Heart, and the partnership with everybody else I mentioned, it's just, those are some of the special things that we have.
Thank you, David. Okay. John, do you want to unmute?
Sorry, I was trying to find the button.
No problem.
Okay, so I just had a question. I mean, this is a low barrier facility. The probability of individuals coming in with a substance problem is not zero. Obviously, they can't indulge in that behavior on site, but that means they will have to leave the site to probably indulge in that. So I was just wondering, what plans are in place to ensure the safety of the immediately surrounding neighborhood and businesses around the shelter from those types of situations?
Yeah, I can take this one. So we do encourage folks to connect with substance use treatment when they are in the shelter. We have tried to encourage folks to, you know, many folks are accustomed to using in a variety of settings if they are going to use drugs or alcohol. We make them aware that it is not legal to use in public spaces and counsel them against that. Most folks are not looking to be seen if they are engaging in any sort of drug-related activity. And so, we are really intentional about partnering with our law enforcement and making folks aware that the neighborhood that the shelter is in is watching, and that they should behave appropriately, as if they are being watched by both law enforcement and by neighbors, and make decisions accordingly. And we have not seen much open drug use in neighborhoods around the shelter. David may be able to speak a little bit more to, what his experience is in counseling folks, but we know that is an issue that our community is worried about, and we are interested in working with our shelter provider and in setting up, expectations for shelter guests around not impacting the neighborhood with the choices that they're making, whether that be drug use or, collecting things that they may want to bring into the shelter or belongings or things like that.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time prior to coming into the shelter, making sure they're aware of that sort of thing. Is it 100% perfect? No, but even if the shelter wasn't there, we still had that sort of stuff going on in different parts of the community. What I will say is every single person that transitions out of the shelter into a situation that's better. I had somebody this morning, I wasn't even working this morning. I was just at our local gas station, happened to come across, and they said, hey, I saw so-and-so got this. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, how do I get it now? So while it's not 100%, I do think absolutely those efforts that we're putting forth are being seen, and it creates that domino effect. It's a very slow domino effect, but it does create that domino effect where, okay, maybe I'll try to take this, or maybe I'll go into this AOD or this NA in the community or stuff like that now. So it absolutely gives us the opportunity. And we, like I said, we partner with our law enforcement very, very closely. And if we are seeing anything going on in our direct shelter neighborhoods, if that shelter neighborhood lets us know, we'll change it. The navigators have changed our schedules many times. We've been out behind our shelter at 2 o'clock or 12 o'clock in the morning, and our community didn't know, but we were out there trying to make sure to see if anything was going on over there. And our law enforcement will back us with that too. We can't be more lucky than what we have with that too. So we are responsive and try to be proactive as possible to try to make sure we mitigate any sort of challenges for any of our community.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Oh,
Can you hear
sorry.
me, Crystal?
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, no, I'd like to. My name is Josh Magdaleno for anybody. I'm the executive lieutenant over operations for Elk Grove Police Department. And some of the areas of responsibility that I have include our homeless outreach team, our crisis response team, and our school resource officers, which all work really well together. So if we have any issues, we know there's a zero tolerance, for any issues for that. So if we get a call from the shelter, from the community, if David calls us, we'll have officers out there. And as you know, we're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So.
Thanks for jumping in, Josh. Appreciate you. I don't see any other hands, so I have a question for everyone, but particularly residents, and particularly if you live near the current shelter, if you have any ideas on how the city can build trust or ensure accountability. I know we want this to be successful and we say that. So does anyone have any ideas on sort of building trust and accountability when it comes to this new permanent shelter location? I'll just leave that there. Anyone can answer. That's too.
I can speak to that since I live in the
perfect.
neighborhood
Awesome.
of the current shelter. Yeah, so moving forward, as much as I appreciate Dave and the Elk Grove PD swinging by the neighborhood, and I see you guys, we have cameras, I see it on loop that you guys circle through the neighborhood. You can't be there 24/7, and nor can I. I live back tucked in the neighborhood, but there was a period of time where every time I passed by, I felt like there was something that I just kind of made me put my eyebrow up. So having 24-hour security responsible for outside. I know we were told when that one opened, oh, there's gonna be cameras and they'll know, but there's 2 windows in the door right now, and 99% of the time I drive by, and I come and go a lot, I'm busy. There's not any but staff outside, so I don't think they honestly see what goes on very often. So having somebody who's responsible for watching outside, and maybe with the new design with more visibility out to the streets. But there, no fault of your own that the current site does not have any visibility outside whatsoever. And so unless people from, staff members from the current contract go outside and look around, usually they're standing out there having their cigarette or whatever, I see them every so often, but to have maybe more accountability, because honestly at midnight, they shouldn't be anything to do with the shelter being an issue if it's a locked facility, which I see that the gates are closed at night, things like that. So if it's happening on the bike trail, which it does back behind, I don't assume that has anything to do with shelter if it's happening at midnight, 1 in the morning. But it's kind of during the day, the comings and goings where they walk around there. I have no way to know when I drive by when they're under that footbridge, if they're using, which they are clearly, if they're from the shelter or if they're just wandering through the area. So having security that belong to the shelter to say, hey, move along if it's not one of their residents. Because I've called before, and if they're still there by the time that Elk Grove is able to get there, then great. And if not, then, is what it is. So that would be my thing. I would say, to have staff that's more aware of just what's going on outside, which might need a dedicated person. I realize the inside staff is busy doing what they're doing.
Thanks, Christina. I appreciate you sharing that. Any other ideas on trust building and accountability? Or I'll add, if anyone wants to sort of share one of their concerns and make suggestions on how that could be addressed. We're not a giant group, so we have all sorts of opportunities to chat. Feel free to unmute yourself, turn on your camera. Diane, I see your.
I did unmute me. I don't even know where to go with that question, but I think we just have to stay so open-minded and ready to accept people's feelings where they're at and try to, whether they be the clients or the people who live near the shelter that are experiencing that in their neighborhood, to just continue to have the conversations and be open-minded and willing to talk things through, because we've come a long way, and I don't think we would be here if it wasn't for that transparency and that willingness to work together.
Thank you, Diane. So,
Also, I guess from a design standpoint, what we could do on the accountability side, Christina, is we could, yeah, I like your idea, maybe surrounding like cameras, monitoring the outside a little bit more. I think site lighting too, making sure things are more well lit, because again, I think to Sarah's point earlier, those individuals, they really don't like to be seen while using. So really just making sure that visibility in the design and also site lighting and monitoring is really conveyed not only just on the site, but kind of like adjacent to the site. So it's really not impacting the neighboring buildings as well. So really just making sure that that visibility is being monitored.
okay. Well, thank you, John. Christina, do you want to respond to anything? I see your face.
No, I just don't like when people don't have their camera turned on if they're talking. So I had to get to a place where I could sit. But no, I appreciate that. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's been impactful, I guess, in that way of everybody in the neighborhood now. You're not sure if they do or they don't belong in the neighborhood. I expressed some concerns. I tried to give it, I think I gave it 5 months before I said one word, not one email, not anything, just to make sure that I understand. So for anybody that doesn't know me, I'm retired law enforcement and now I work in mental health. So I get it. It's complicated. I'm not trying to be heartless. I'm not trying to be awful, but this is an older neighborhood of a lot of older folks, and we've lived here since 1981. So I've been literally in this neighborhood that long, and my parents live here. So there's just a lot of people who are frustrated. And I, sadly, as much as you can put it on social media and all that kind of stuff and say, hey, reach out if there's a problem, they don't. And they message me, they text me, they call me, what do you guys, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings? So I kind of feel like sometimes I get tasked with being the spokesperson for the neighborhood sometimes, sadly.
Well, we're appreciating that you're here, even if it's a heavy lift. I know. Liz Irons put something in the chat. What are some of the shelter locations toured that have positive experiences with neighbors? Does anyone on the city side want to take that, or do we want to open up just generally about what shelters have? I mean, there's a lot of different kinds of shelters in our region, I want to say, and I'm just going to sort of open that up to see. Sarah, Hymanot, David, anybody?
So is the question more of like the ones that we've gone out and toured and seen? Is that, Liz, is that more so what you're looking at? Like, okay.
Yes, it is.
So we have in the last 6 months toured, I don't know, Himano can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe 6 or 7 shelters, all in the area, all of them much bigger than what we're looking at. Many shelters are in industrial areas because that's just, they've been there for many years. You know, the two of the big ones in Sacramento and those. We have toured one off of Auburn and Watt, which is really in a kind of a residential neighborhood. The further you go down Auburn Boulevard there, you hit a lot of residential stuff there. And we spoke to them, we spoke to their security. It has been a lot of challenges from that one. The other one that was really densely in a residential area was, while it is not a full-time shelter, they don't have like 12 beds. It's more of a drop-in day center that's in Davis. And Davis is, just to say it out there, their approach to things is just different. And they say that. While everybody else in the area was changing their municipal codes after the Supreme Court overturned the court case last summer, or a year ago summer, Davis has a pretty liberal one. So that one, their community is pretty accepting of that one. But we have toured many, and like I've told other people, we get to do this once, and we want to make sure we do it right. And so we've gone out and talked to people. We've gone out and observed things. And if we get to go see more, we absolutely will, so we can try to incorporate all of those aspects to make sure that we do this the best that we can.
I think to add a little bit to that, I think there are two key factors when we're looking at shelters that make them a better fit in a neighborhood. And both of them are things that we are already planning for. One is that they are referral only, so that they're not walk-up shelters that people spend time queuing outside or are able to camp outside while they wait to get into. And then the other one is that they serve that neighborhood, or they serve that area, that they're not drawing from, say, the entire county to fill the shelter, that they're providing a benefit to the local area that they're in. Those are the ones that tend to have better relationships with their neighbors, because there's less impact on the neighborhood. And the impact is more direct, right? You know that when someone goes into the shelter, that's someone whose tent isn't pitched in your neighborhood or your area anymore. And Elk Grove, thinking of Elk Grove as kind of its own local area, because our overall homeless population is so manageable at this point, relatively small. When we put someone into the shelter, that is someone whose tent is not in our community, is not along a trail or out in a field, or backing up against homes or businesses anymore.
I had
From a design side, we have been reaching out to providers and shelters across the state, learning what works best for them and how we can implement those ideas back in Elk Grove. So from the individual spaces that are included within the shelter to the range of services that are offered, all of those success ideas are being brought back to Elk Grove to inform how we plan this space. So making sure that we have some individual spaces for de-escalation, making sure we have the separated family areas and a separate family entrance, making sure we have secured, separated outdoor space with lighting and cameras. These are all, elements that we have learned are key to success and we're bringing to the design of this shelter.
I wanted to make one comment about the location for the future shelter. I think, having to have one in a building that existed already came with a lot of challenges that didn't have ways to circumvent. And the fact that it ends up by a freeway and there's a walkway that's there. There are things that make it a little tougher. And I think all those things will be looked at when there's a space to be building on and building from fresh. So I feel hopeful for that part. I have a family member who have had some experience that lives near the current shelter, and it is hard. So I just want to honor that part too.
Thanks, Diane. Anna, I'm intrigued by the comment you made in the chat that in your experience, the relationship with the neighborhood depends on the organization and director. That when you were the director at Meadowview, you were in the neighborhood included you in community events and asked for volunteers to help at events.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
I think that there's always an opportunity. I was part of the neighborhood association, and I was active in the neighborhood, so it wasn't in so we actually were considered to be part of the community. And whenever there was a need, like Pinnell Center next door would need help passing out food to the neighborhood folks that were coming, they would call and let us know how many volunteers they would need. And once they even included us in a parade. So my point is that depending depending on the intentional relationship that is built with the neighborhood, it really makes a huge difference in how the neighborhood is affected. So it can be positive, is I guess my point.
Do you have any advice? So we don't obviously have a provider identified who will like operate the shelter. This one. What advice would you give based on your experience?
I would have that as an expectation that I don't know, we don't know who the provider will be, the director will be, or who they are, but that they actually make good efforts in becoming part of the community and engaging with the community and the events and being very responsive to any issues in the community.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Anna.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Anna, for sharing that. I think
Thanks.
that's one of the things I saw at our last meeting at the library. The community is so engaged, so solutions oriented. There are so many people who are looking for an opportunity to help and to get involved and to volunteer, and making sure that, you know, we're doing our job and reaching out and including all of those voices and developing a solution is really important.
Awesome. Okay, we're running up at the end of our 90 minutes. Does anyone have any final thoughts they want to share before we do the close?
Yeah, this is John again. I just had a question. What's the projected budget for this project? I've noticed on the Elk Grove Citizens article they had a couple years ago, they mentioned that the homeless population has almost doubled in Elk Grove since 2022. From 2022 to 2024, it was 45 and 22, and that was 83. Well, it was 83 and 24. And so I just was wondering, does anyone have a comment on what accounts for that?
Yeah.
Even with all the services in place that we have now, it just seems like there's more. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I can address that. Some of the numbers that we use to kind of count homelessness have never been terribly reliable. In a community like Elk Grove, where we are really spread out, the point in time count isn't always as reliable as it is in some other areas where we know that there's a lot of folks concentrated in one particular area, like say along the American River. And so the count there could be more accurate than it is in Elk Grove. Part of the reason that we believe that the count numbers have gone up, we've always maintained that we have about 100 to 150 folks at any given time. The point in time count has not always captured all of those folks. We have over time gotten better, and they've gotten better at accepting and sending out teams to count based on information that we're providing to them. So over time, the count has gotten more accurate. It has not actually meant that our numbers have changed, that our numbers have actually doubled. The count is just getting more reliable because we are sending better data to the agency that plans for that count, and they're sending in return better volunteer teams that are actually finding folks in the community, or more likely to find folks in the community. So that accounts for some of the perceived increase. On the cost side, we don't have a firm cost estimate for this yet. We have been setting aside some money, some state money, and some of our Measure E funding to do the construction for the shelter. But part of this initial conceptual planning phase is getting us to a point where we know how big the facility needs to be, what spaces it needs to include in it. And then that helps us to prepare a cost estimate, and NJA is working on that. But at this point, we're so early in the process that we don't have a great cost estimate at this point. But that is something that is being worked on, and we are, looking at resources that we can set aside for it, state grant funds, and our own local sales tax measure funds.
Thank you.
Okay, Barry, I see you unmuted. Do you want to round us off with the
Yes,
final
yes, I
comments?
just had a question. I apologize for getting on so late, but I was at the Historical Society meeting at the old hotel and just got home. But I had a question. I went to a mixer last Thursday night with Chamber of Commerce, with Uplift, and I talked with Gathering Inn. I just wonder, is Gathering Inn going to be involved at all with the shelter?
So the Gathering Inn is the current shelter provider. So they're the manager of our current shelter. We've definitely worked with them to collect their feedback on what a new shelter should look like, and their thoughts on design and need. But our architect partner, NJA, has also worked with a lot of other shelter providers in the region to collect a broad perspective. So we would go out every 3 or so years for a provider. And so we want a shelter that would work for any or many providers, so that, if we can get a better price or get better results from a different service provider, that we would have the option to change contractors in the future. So it really just depends on the competitiveness of the contractor's proposal.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Barry. Thank you all. So we're 2 minutes past. I'm going to wrap us up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know there's a lot of things we all could be doing on our Saturday afternoons, but this is really important, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us for this conversation today. The next meeting for this is September 17th at District 56, 5:30 p.m. Hope to see you there. That survey that has been dropped in the chat a couple times, that will be open until September 20th. So I actually feel like we have close to 300 responses on that. Let's try to hit 4. So please stay tuned in to everything that's happening. Thank you so much for being here today. We will see you on the 17th, or we'll see you during phase 2. You're always welcome to reach out to the city with any questions if things come up in between meetings, of course. So thank you for your time today. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.